Congratulations to Leaf Silver, the winner of my Dragonsteel Nexus Pass 2024 giveaway. Thank you all for finding and subscribing to my channel during that giveaway, and I hope for you newcomers that you stick around because we've got so much more Cosmere and stuff to talk about. Hey you geeks! 2 more chapters and tons of stuff to talk about this week. So, spoiler warning for all tour-released Cosmere content, including and especially Elantris, where specifically marked. Back to Wind and Truth, we are likewise in that moment where things seem to be still slightly in our favor before we get blown away by our inevitable doom. Masks. I do appreciate that Shallan has found a simple solution to all the high-tech gadgets the Ghostbloods have employed to detect radiance, and that is to go about things the old-fashioned way.
So, a mop, a couple of lights, and some chair fabric are not gonna fool anyone.
This solution is so much more straightforward than anything Way of King Shallan would have concocted. So it seems she has in fact learned something in the brilliant schemes department after all. It also helps that, as we've seen with Yatil, the Ghostbloods allow their masked members to remain masked during important meetings. So all Shallan has to do is take one. Shallan had expected it to stick. She'd always felt that Yatil had worn her so long that the skin had grown over it. That proved an incorrect assumption. The mask was obviously removed and cleaned often, but it was also worn so continuously that it left imprints on the guard's face. Though this other woman has the telltale signs of regularly wearing a mask, it is unclear if she has the same rigor about it as Yatil, as the other actually true Southern Scadrians we've seen aren't as emphatic about wearing theirs all the time. So it would be kind of ironic if it wasn't this third outpost or other incompetence that gave Shallan away, but the mask itself. Either that or she's betrayed by one of her own, as both Gaz and Darcira seem to be almost applying for the position, if at least as a red herring. "Did you find your watch post?" Darcira said to Gaz. "Yeah," he said. "Neutralize them fast enough to show up here and help. What took you so long?" "Had to go and position the strike team, if you forgot," Darcira said. "What do we do if there were more than 2 observation posts watching the base?" You guys seem to be almost rooting for a betrayal in the comments section, and I wish you the best of luck with that endeavor, though I don't think that would be the worst thing to happen to Shallan. Since she keeps so many secrets, it would hurt, but she could go on. Rather, one of you theorized that Shanarach would be at this meeting, and the implication being that Shallan would recognize her as her mother. That is bloody brilliant, and I love it, and it would be awful for Shallan, and yes, let's have that. Barring that, Shallan discovering that everything she's learned and the journey she's been on thus far is still not enough to beat Mraize, which we know it's not because he has an ace up his sleeve. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Which is worse? Lightweaver armor. You guys were also partly right. Shallan did use her armor to incapacitate someone. Just not a traitor, rather an active combatant. Now she ordered her armor. In a blink, the armor formed, not around her, but around the guard, freezing her in place as it had read earlier. "Shallan!" the creation spread said, eager. "Just keep her mouth closed," she said, "like the drawing Shallan did for you, right?" While this skill set is certainly handy to have in the future, I think that light weavers are undervaluing their own particular set of skills by trying to copy what the windrunners are doing. Windspren, for whatever reason, are naturally drawn to protection and movement or fighting. However, creation spren, like the light weavers themselves, love to mimic and copy things. So, with the right set of instructions, could a light weaver get their shard plate to be a ghillie suit?
All right, you won this one. Come on out. Soldier, how did you get that close to me?
Though, of course, a suit covered in the dumb, dead plants of Shinovar would be ineffective over in the Stormlands, Shallan could also perhaps instruct her suit to imitate rock itself, or even stonework, which can be pretty handy for an assassin.
She's not coming. Can't believe I'm not going.
Unless, of course, Mraize is part Harrison Ford. The possibilities are quite versatile here, and unlike using a light weaving, shard plate is now established not to set off Taldane sand. She checked the sand in the hanging jar, still black as she'd hoped. They'd said that it took an intelligence spren to activate the stuff, which made sense. Otherwise, it would be useless, turning white in warning whenever someone got anxious. Her plate spren hadn't affected it even when forming. Speaking of lesser spren, changing minds. Navani is making progress in building her bond with the sibling, as she is following through on what she promised to do at the end of Rhythm of War. Compromise. Domesticated flame spren, the sibling asked. Nonsense. Is it? Navani asked, still watching Bippy. Rushu moved her finger back and forth in front of the glass, and Bippy ran to follow it. When Rushu complimented the spren on its trick, Navani could have sworn that Bippy glowed brighter. Intelligent spren seek bonds with people. Why not lesser spren? Thus, the sibling demonstrates that they can still and will change their mind. And this time, it's in a positive direction towards better accepting humans despite what they can do to spren. Because of this new acceptance of humans, the sibling is also, again, very chatty on the topic of shards, and that they too can, apparently, change their mind, or even perhaps their intent, if untethered from the human world long enough. These powers aren't like the tiny pieces that become spren. The power of a shard needs a partner, a vessel. Without it, great danger. We do not think, as humans do, to separate the power from those who are attached to the physical realm. That should frighten you. It is not so terrible a thing for part of me to despise you, but for the power of a god, dangerous for all of us. It seems that Sanderson is about to take us to a place that none of us expected. Because of all the various dead shards we've seen on the Cosmere, none have completely abandoned their intent. Devotion and dominion seem to be a mindless force of energy wandering the cognitive realm, yet they still, in the glimpse we see of them at the end of Elantris, spoiler warning, they still seem to be giving off, at least in a devotion-centric nation, a very devoted vibe. The water held Raoden in a cool embrace. It was a thing alive. He could hear it calling in his mind. Come, it said, I give you release. It was a comforting parent. It wanted to take away his pain and sorrows. Meanwhile, the bodies of ruin and preservation were both, spoilers for Well of Ascension, bound physically to the physical realm. So we've never really seen a shard's investiture completely untethered from the realm of humans entirely. This wouldn't worry me so much, even with the siblings' warning, except that Roshar has an almost embarrassment of invested beings who are now acting almost utterly without honor despite being stuffed with his investiture. The 9 heralds have for millennia acted contrary to their stated intents. On top of that, the sibling once was created as the very bridge between human and Spren themselves, yet came to despise humans before the Recreants. In fact, the very change in their disposition was a cause of the Recreants. And now, most recently, the Stormfather has been unmasked as a liar and a manipulator. So now, I am beginning to question whether or not Honor truly loved humans in the end, as the only one that we have saying such things is the Stormfather himself. The Stormfather paused. I remember, at the end, Honor was more obsessed with oaths. There were times when the oath itself was more important than the meaning behind it. But he was not a passionless monster. He loved humankind. He died defending you. Sure, Stormfather, I totally believe you. There's not a crazed honorific intent going wild in the spiritual realm right now who despises all oathbreakers, which, on account of the Recreants, now includes man and Spren and Singer alike. This is going to be great, I can tell. If my worst fears are realized, then I'm probably not getting my democratic divinity at the end of Wind and Truth, if ever. But I can still hold out for those lost blades floating in the cognitive realm somewhere, waiting for someone to form a connection with them again, and I hope come raining down in glory in the radiance hour of need. Noted. Navani's other interactions with her support staff and Bright Lords make up all of those charming little realistic isms that make Sanderson's highfalutin giant crayfish killer plants high fantasy realistic. And without chapters like these, I wouldn't feel grounded and would enjoy the story significantly less. However, these chapters are very hard to theorize from. While Aladar's concerns that the upper classes ain't so happy with the lack of social stability in Alethkar now, I don't think they're going to riot before the end of this particular book. Let me know later if I'm wrong. However, I do find Sabarial's presence and concerns about the logistics of running Urithiru and the Shattered Plains to be particularly telling if one of them goes down. We can't keep relying on the Oathgates, Sabarial said, rubbing his forehead. But organizing shipments from Aesir up through these mountains is going to be an enormous hassle. Flying them in will be prohibitively expensive in Stormlight unless we can make more airships. Yes, we can grow food now, but other supplies... This confirms one of my longest held premises going into Rhythm of War, that Urithiru is still reliant on its Oathgates for supplies, as well as its allies. Thus, if Team Radiance were to keep the tower yet lose everything else, it would still be a total loss. Sabarial's words also point to that other nagging question of why don't they unleash the soul casters within the cognitive realm? Not only are they undermanned, even accounting for the ardent soul casters, but they are also undersupplied. We are outgunned, outmanned. The the family stone. Last but certainly not least, we have Zeth's first flashback, which is great because I've been waiting for closure on a few things for years. Not just since Rhythm of War generally, but specifically since Sanderson read a few of these as preview chapters in 2022. So I've already had my, oh my gosh, they're dressed like background characters in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat as they watch their sheep.
Spend all of their days in the fields with sheep.
And if you want all the theories that spawned from that revelation, well, there's the link somewhere. The first notable change I found was the removal of a certain shard's name. Zeth scraped bare feet across packed earth as he danced, getting it on his toes, loving the feel of cultivation's embrace. While, in the published version, Zeth's bare feet scraped across the packed earth as he danced, getting it on his toes, loving the feel of the soil. This, I suppose, fixed the problem of how an 11-year-old Shin Shepherd would casually name-drop one of the shards who had spent 2,000 years making herself scarce on Greater Roshar. With that problem solved, Sanderson seemed to really embellish in this version just how upper caste Zeth's family was, and how, honorable was Zeth's father. Zeth's father worked on the rooftop, plugging a hole. Normally, he oversaw the other shepherds, visiting them to give them help. Naturo was between assignments, working on the house he and his brothers had built. Although the splash, the single piece of brightly colored clothing worn by Zeth and his sister, is a far cry from the brightly colored cloak Risen sees the farmer wear way back in the Way of Kings, Zeth's father is still honored and respected among his peers. Their family isn't bound to follow the orders of a rock like those who subtract, and Zeth and his sister have leisure periods where they may play the flute and dance for a rock. But their father still has assignments. He is told what to do by someone, probably the farmer. Thus, it seems that Shinovar, like the rest of Roshar to their surprise, I'm sure, also has a highly regulated social system. They also, despite their distance from everyone else, are constantly under threat from those outsiders.
That's beyond our borders. You must never go there, Simba.
Such a place, upon reflection, does sound like an unmaid's paradise, as we saw in Alethkar and Yakaved, even though the thrill was a mindless force and allowed the Alethi to feel like they had freedom. Their culture had completely conformed to always feeding the ongoing war. It didn't matter where the war was or who it was against, it was always there to serve the thrill. Another change I found quite interesting was how Zeth described his regional monastery. In 2022, it went, his home of Clearmount was at the very edge of a broad plain, excellent for grazing, with the ocean beyond, on the southeastern edge of Shinovar, an honored location, near the Zephyr Monastery, just further along the mountain ridge, where one of the sacred honor blades was kept. I remember this one particularly well because, while researching to justify the Mesopotamian mythic tie-ins I've been getting from the Stormlight Archive in my latest rereads, I learned that Mount Zephyr is kind of sort of actually a real place in the real world, which is probably why in the final draft, Sanderson changed its name. The grassland bordered on the southern coast of Shinovar. Clearmount and Zeth's family homestead was in an honored location near the monastery of the Stone Wards, which was up along the mountain ridge. If Sanderson truly wants to be less blatant about his real-world tie-ins, I say...
Alright then, keep your secrets.
Yet, despite all the changes, clarifications, and straight-up corrections Sanderson has made in his final draft, one thing remains the same. The monasteries are apparently preparing for an attack by the Voidbringers. Mother says they practice with the blades. I'd like to see that. Hold one. Why practice except to... They will fight the Voidbringers when they arrive, Zeph snapped. That is the reason. Thus, on the one hand, we have stone shamans claiming to be preparing for the return of the Voidbringers, and yet we know that stone shamans are also the cause of Zeph's expulsion. Now, he did foretell a return, and in a Vorin culture, that would be a simple enough explanation. But not so with the Shin. Also, it still makes no sense that they would set someone loose on Roshar with an honor blade and an oath stone when they have kept their secrets for so long.
That don't make no sense.
So, in addition to the fate of Molly the Ewe, which is very important, I am very eager to find out how all the rest of this fits together. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more. And even with Wind and Truth coming out soon, I will continue to have content beyond December 6th. Thanks for watching. Bye!